I've been running a production business for around 15 years now, and I started out as a one-man band, hauling gear on my own, taking on any job I could find. And over the years, I've gained so much valuable experience, whether it's the pitfalls of undercharging and overworking, going back to toxic clients time and time and again, or just spending too much money on unnecessary gear. But over time, I started putting proper systems in place, learning from all that pain and slowly turning all of these life lessons into an actual business, one that works for me and not against me. So in this video, I wanted to share the 15 lessons that genuinely transformed my production business. These are all practical things that will help take your filmmaking business from a one-person operation to the next level. Let's dive in. Your camera gear should work for you, not the other way around. Think of your equipment as a business investment. Once you've paid it off, it should start making you money. So if you drop 20K on a camera, but only book 1 or 2 low budget shoots a month, you'll never see that money again. When you're starting out, keep your investment small. Buy used, borrow or rent until the jobs justify the upgrade. That way, every shoot you do actually puts money into your pocket and not just back into paying off that camera. It's also smart to track your gear costs too. So you could keep a simple spreadsheet listing what your kit costs. And every time you get paid, you're going to be charging for your time, but also for the cost of your kit. Make sure you log the portion of that goes towards paying it off. And then once you've cleared that cost, you know exactly when that kit's going to be turning a profit. If you pay a camera off in year 1 and use it for 4 years in total, then that gives you 3 solid years of pure return on your investment. Very few successful businesses are run by a single person, and this is probably one of the biggest lessons you will have to learn if you want to transition from that one-man band setup to, a higher throughput workflow. So you need to just move away from trying to do everything on your own. So initially you might want to think about starting to hire a production assistant on your shoot days, to help improve setup time and get more done. After that, think about, if you're out shooting, then you can't be at home editing and vice versa. So hiring editors and producers can also help you take on more work rather than, having to turn it down if you're busy. And as you begin to level up your projects, hiring more crew members on shoot day, so production assistants, camera assistants, camera operators, sound operators, even DOPs, all of that stuff will help take work off your shoulders and will help to ensure that you can deliver quality work. Learning to delegate and communicate is such an important skill. And I get it, if you're used to doing everything yourself, it can take a while to learn to concede some control over to other people and place trust in them. But if you hire good people, you're always going to achieve better results than working on your own, and probably with a little bit less stress as well. And those shoot days will just tend to be a little bit more fun and sociable. Sometimes saying no can be a great business decision. Taking on too much work is a great way to burn yourself out and risk relationships with clients by spreading yourself too thin and delivering sloppy work and not getting yourself hired again. Also, deciding to cut ties with toxic clients can be a really liberating and sound business decision. So we've all worked with clients, I think, who, cause us endless issues. They delay projects, behave unprofessionally, pay you late. And in the long run, these sorts of clients are going to affect your ability to do business. So they're going to pull your focus away from maintaining the clients that you want to keep. Saying no to them is hard, yes, but ultimately, if you're always angry about working with these kinds of clients, you're the only one who can break that cycle. Lighting is probably going to make the biggest difference to the quality of your work than spending thousands and thousands on a new fancy camera or renting in that Alexa Mini LF. If you don't understand the basic principles and rules of lighting, and you don't really understand why something looks good and why something doesn't, then definitely just invest some time watching some YouTube videos. You'll see that there are some demonstrable, repeatable rules that can help you set up your lighting quickly and get repeatable good results. Good placement of lights, using certain lighting modifications, backlighting, all these techniques that you can use repeatedly and quickly when you're setting up and again and again and again in your projects. That is going to pay way more dividends and is likely going to get you hired again, rather than turning up with loads of expensive cameras and lenses and not really know what you're doing to get a good image of them. When I first started out, I used to waste hours digging through royalty-free music sites, and honestly, most of it sounded awful. These days though, I use Audio, a high quality music library that pretty much pays for itself by saving you all of that time looking for good music. They've just launched Elements 2.0. It's a new feature that lets you break down every track into individual instrument stems. So it's super simple. On the track selection page, you just go down here where you can preview and download the stems that you want. If you just want the drums or you need to pull out the strings because your client suddenly hates violins, you can do that in seconds. It just gives you so much more control and flexibility to build custom soundtracks that actually fit your production requirements. And also I've got a special link down below, so if you use that combined with my code edprosser, you'll get an exclusive discount at checkout. So head over to Audio Today and check it out. Always use contracts or at least written terms of business. As your projects scale up, so maybe you're doing multi-day shoots, or maybe you're taking on projects where you're doing the edit as well and there's pre-production, or maybe you're getting even larger and you're, subcontracting crew, producers, editors, and you're taking on all of this risk. At this point, you definitely should be having some form of contract that just outlines, all the what ifs. What happens if the client cancels the project halfway through? How many rounds of feedback? The project schedule? All of this stuff should be outlined in a contract, because no project ever goes perfectly. There's always some creep in the way that the project is. And often, at the end of the project, when you're delivering files, the client might turn around and say, hey, I thought you were going to do a load of social cut downs and vertical crop versions as well. If you have a written contract and you have everything down in writing and they've looked at it and agreed to it, then you're both on the same page about what you're delivering and what they're paying for that service. Personal projects are both a creative outlet for yourself and obviously also a marketing tool. Over the years, I've pushed myself to fund and shoot my own personal projects, and they've paid for themselves many times over. 2 of the documentaries that I put out this year have led to new clients and new paid work who often wanted to pay me to make similar projects, which was fantastic because those personal projects are projects that I wanted to make. And I think there's another side of it as well. I think there's this kind of creative fulfillment. If you're maintaining these one-off couple of year personal projects that sort of fill your cup up, inspire you, help you try new things in a safe environment where it doesn't really matter if it doesn't quite pan out, I think they're really important. Separate business and personal finances and save for tax immediately. So this took me a few years to figure out, but it made everything a lot more cleaner and streamlined, especially when it came to doing my own tax returns. Having a separate business account where all your invoices are paid into, where all your business expenses come out to, is going to make life a lot easier if that's separate from all your day-to-day personal expenses as well. On the tax side of stuff, I also find it really useful to have a high interest savings account where as soon as I get paid any invoice, I immediately slice the portion that I need to pay for tax and put it into that savings account. It takes a while to get used to that, but you need to realize that you have to pay tax whether you like it or not. And what you'll find over the course of the year is that if you are racking up business expenses and you're buying cameras and gear, then the amount of tax that you end up paying, because you'll offset some of those expenses against your income, you might be paying slightly less tax than you've saved for anyway, which means there's always going to be a little bit each year left over because you've saved a little bit more than you needed to, and each year that will add up. And what you'll find is over the years you'll start to generate a nice little buffer, and you can use that either as a kit budget or probably better keep it in that account and use it as an emergency fund. As a freelancer, work can fluctuate, or you can get sick, or your car might break down. Life always has a habit of throwing things up when you least expect it. Having that buffer and that emergency fund to cover you, to catch you, to cushion you, it's just so important. But even if you're just chucking in 10, 20 quid a month, just get it started, because if you keep putting it off, you're never going to do it. But if you build that discipline and you start getting paid more and you can put a little bit more in, you should have, 3 months of life expenses covered in that emergency fund that you do not touch unless you absolutely need it. Okay, this is the big one. Back up projects properly, ideally locally and to the cloud. Most people starting out will learn this the hard way, including myself. So if you're not backing up projects, stop what you're doing right now and go and do it. Have at least 2 copies of a project at one time, ideally more, and don't keep those 2 copies in the same place at the same time or travel with them. So if you are traveling with a project, make sure your second copy is somewhere else. So if you fall into a swimming pool, you're not ruining both drives at the same time. And ideally, one of those backups, ideally a third, would be an offsite, ideally cloud backup. A good cloud backup will just give you that extra layer of redundancy. If you're working on larger projects and you're doing pre-production down to final delivery, it could be 6 months the length of that project, and you don't want to just be invoicing at the final point of that project if you've been working for 6 months. Have a 40, 50, 60% upfront invoice that gets paid before you start the project. That will cover all of your upfront expenses, because you don't want to be out of pocket for travel, accommodation, paying subcontractors. Really important. Make sure also you have invoicing milestones across the length of a project. So I like to do, an early deposit that confirms and books the project. Then maybe at the delivery of first rough cut, I will invoice for the next amount. And then final delivery of all the deliverables, I'll have the final invoice. Also, clear invoicing terms are really important. Have your terms on the invoice, have your late fee policy. So if your invoicing terms are 30 days, also have your late fee policy as well. I always charge late fees. So if the payment is over 30 days, it's late past that deadline, then it just outlines how much my late fees are. And in the UK, we're able to charge standard late fees. And those terms are all included on the invoice. So when I send them the invoice and they're late paying it, they then can't say, I didn't know about the late fees. I always think it's good to pay my crew as soon as possible. Like ideally, I love to pay them within 24 hours if I can, or at least within a week. We don't have to stick to this arbitrary 30-day payment term. It's a really nice token of appreciation. It's like saying, hey, I value you. I appreciate the time you invested on this project. I love working with you. I understand it's not always possible, but these are the little things that you can do to help people coming back onto your jobs, even if you're not working with sort of massive budgets and you're not giving them the highest rate. Don't let clients rush you into chaos. The job is stressful, but it doesn't have to be. You can advocate for better working conditions, and I really recommend that you do. Given that it can sometimes take upwards of 20 to 30 minutes just to get through a building and security and lobbies and elevators and get your kit to the final location, I personally like to ensure these days a minimum of an hour to get in and get set up for a standard interview setup. If it's a larger, more complex setup and we haven't recce'd the location, then up to 2 hours sometimes, if that's possible. So for me personally, I'd rather just get to a location an hour or two earlier, set off a bit earlier, if it allows for a less stressful setup. And if you're doing this job day in, day out, you want to be watching your stress levels and you don't want to be constantly on red alert, sprinting all the time just to get to the finish line. It's easy to fall under the illusion when you're browsing Instagram, people's portfolio websites, or even YouTube that there are people who are just working on blockbuster projects all of the time, getting paid to make music videos, art, films, documentaries, and commercials. And sure, there are people who do that 100% of the time. But for most people, they're going to be working on a variety of projects, including taking on the less glamorous projects that will never make it into their portfolios or Instagram. So take everything you see online with a pinch of salt, and remember that there's no shame in taking those, cash flow jobs. This could include anything from corporate interviews, event work, interviews at conferences, small business work, or even working with agencies, doing work for, the less sexy brands like banks and insurance companies. This stuff brings money in. It's not sexy, but if you take on these sort of boring cash flow jobs, then ultimately that's going to give you more financial freedom, and it's going to allow you to hopefully take on occasionally those cool passion projects that aren't very well paid, but will make it into your portfolio and may one day land you that dream job where you are getting paid megabucks to do something cool. Take all advice with a pinch of salt, including my own. What works for one person, might not work for you. And it's important that you develop your own experiences and confidence by just putting yourself out there and getting the work done. There are so many people who want to sell you courses or quick fixes, but unfortunately, the reality is there are no shortcuts to doing this stuff, and it just takes time and dedication and a lot of hard work to build any business. And unfortunately, along that way, it'll probably involve some mistakes and some failures. Educating yourself helps, but you need to apply those lessons in real life under pressure, and that will really be the best way to help develop your skills. So I hope the information in this video is useful, and then maybe it gives you a few more tools to equip yourself with in handling your own production business. If you like the video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you think I've missed anything or there are any good tips that have helped you along the way, just drop them in the comments down below. But that's it. I'm edprosser. Thanks for watching, and until next time, see ya.